You know, it's pretty obvious that Hollywood has a woman problem, but it's not the problem they think it is. Hey y'all, SnarkyJay cosplay here. As of late, we have heard so many different things about women in movies now. We had Girlboss Snow White, we have the advent of the MCU, where we're seeing legacy characters basically being replaced with their female equivalents or their counterparts that come later, and there's a lot of complaining about that, right? And I won't lie, there is a certain element of misogyny, because as a woman who does things on the internet, the comments that I get compared to some of the men who do the exact same thing, holy shit. I've never read so much about myself that is also so incredibly mean-spirited and inaccurate in my life. But all of that aside, a lot of the griping about women in Hollywood movies, in superhero franchises, and things like Star Wars and all that sort of thing, it's not about the fact that there is a woman. It's more about what Hollywood does with that woman. I came up with this video 2 weeks ago, and I've been thinking on whether or not I make it, just because I felt like it was sort of a random thing to talk about, but I figured I'm a woman who frequently bitches about these things in a male-dominated space, so why the f not? See, in my opinion, the inclusion of women in things is never the problem. In fact, in recent years, I like seeing when there's a woman as part of the team. I've never really needed women to relate to a character. I would argue that a ton of the characters that I really identify with, and a bunch of the ones that I've been inspired to cosplay the most, are male characters, so I don't exactly need somebody with the same physical attributes to relate to. However, it's always nice to feel a little more represented, and it's nice to have a girl on the team, right? We love that. The problem is that lately Hollywood considers adding a woman to the team, or even replacing a man with a woman, to be the ultimate in strength and power. And so what happens with these female characters, with women in these movies, is that they write them like shit. You basically end up with very few schools of thought, and they almost tend to look pretty homogenous. You might end up with a character like Jennifer Walters in the She-Hulk Disney Plus series, where not only was she infinitely better at everything than her cousin, but she also spent a big chunk of the show throwing herself a pity party, complaining about her life, bitching about the people around her, and stepping on the men in her life, all in the name of feminism and being charming. She comes across petty and man-hating. And the important part is that none of her pity parties are because she's so flawed and so challenged. Rather, it's because everybody around her is either an idiot or a complete asshole. And they all suck so badly that standing in her glory, she has to take a moment to feel bad because she's just so far above them. I don't think I'd ever identified with a character less than I did She-Hulk, because in the name of female empowerment, they put a pity party throwing 30-something-year-old on a pedestal while she on all the other catty women in her life, because none of the other women were nice, and the idiotic men, because there was not one smart man in that show, beneath her. Was not a fan of that approach. I didn't think she was relatable. I thought she was aggravating. And then you have the other type of female character. You can pick any, pretty much, but right now I'm gonna go with Rey from the Star Wars sequel trilogy, who was the Mary Sue to end all Mary Sues. Yes, we had seen other Jedi before her have to train and really struggle to use the Force efficiently, but she was somehow absolutely perfect at everything, needed no help from anybody. Now, this is not the fault of Daisy Ridley, rather it was the fault of the writers, who had no plan for this character from the beginning. But this is the real problem here. It's not putting a woman in the center of anything. At least that's never been my complaint. I'd love for a woman to be the center of something. But the problem is that when Hollywood wants to write women at the forefront, at the center of a story, they want her to be perfect, as if writing a woman with flaws would make her inherently unlikable, when quite frankly, I think the opposite is true. I mean, most of my favorite male characters are inherently tortured, flawed individuals. They struggle with themselves and the world around them, and they're incredibly complicated characters. And so they give the men these complicated struggles, these deep-seated fears, these things that they have to contend with, and they build a hero around one really important thing: resilience, the strength to rise up against the struggle. And yet when Hollywood is given a woman, they just write her perfect at everything. There's never a struggle because she's just inherently amazing. There's never a challenge because even though she's 90 pounds and 5'2", she can somehow flip men that are bigger than her. There's never a moment where she has to look inward and see, man, maybe I f***ed up. No, because she looks inward and finds that the true power was within her all along. Hollywood does this and essentially dehumanizes the woman. They dehumanize her because they take away the natural human quality of failure. And as a woman who's been doing things my whole life, I have been a jack of all trades, master of none. I'm not a perfect person. I have had struggles. I have had things that I definitely would go back and do differently if I could. I have regrets. I am a human being. I would never sit here and tell you, yes, I am the great SnarkyJay. You're welcome. I've never done anything wrong in my whole life. That just makes no sense. And it's cheap, and it doesn't make me compelling or interesting. And that's exactly what Hollywood doesn't get. They can't even give you a princess who yearns for love because no, she has to be focused on leadership. What the f***? I don't even know a single woman in real life who doesn't yearn for love. It's an inherent thing. Human beings crave companionship and connections with other people. Even the people that are strong, independent women who don't need a man, I promise you, if you offered them a good one on a plate, would snatch that shit up. And there's nothing wrong with it. Hollywood has made it where it's okay for men to be human and for men to up and men to really fall on their sword in film, and yet when it comes to women, they have to be these perfect creatures that one-up everybody, and they're better than the men around them, and they can do everything you can do, and they can do it in heels. And it's cheap and non-relatable. As a real human woman, I think that sucks. And the thing that really got me thinking about this, and I know that people are probably going to disagree with me in the comments section, so I'm kind of ready for that, but I recently played through Final Fantasy VII, and I have spent most of my life, like I said, identifying with the male characters because they always just have written them in a more interesting way. And yet I spent the entirety of this game absolutely adoring Tifa Lockhart. If you're unfamiliar with the Final Fantasy series or with Final Fantasy VII, big recommend from me if you like that type of game. But the whole point, and I'm realizing now that putting up a picture of her is kind of maybe doing myself a disservice, one, because she's so cute, and two, because a lot of people that I've seen argue against her relevance on Twitter, where all good opinions go to die, pretty much say that she's only relevant because she's hot and because she has tiggle bitties. And she is a very cute character with a very shapely combination of polygons. However, in the time that I spent playing these games, I realized that she's probably one of the best written female characters I have ever seen. You look at her and yes, okay, she's hot, I get it. I want to bypass that. But she's also a great fighter. She's very skilled. She's arguably one of the better fighters in the game. She's incredibly useful to the group for most of the game. She is a major character, and in my opinion, they don't use her as romantic fodder for the lead of the game, Cloud. She does have feelings for him, and that much is obvious, but it's not like they paint you this ridiculous love triangle where everything this woman does and everything that concerns her is a man. No, she's a complicated character with her own set of complex feelings and past experiences. She has goals that she wants to achieve, and you never see her being objectively better than everybody around her. And one of the things that really surprised me is that in a lot of modern media, they always have to give you another woman as a problem, which to me is really interesting, that you could preach feminism and feminist ideas, and yet the women are always inherently catty and problematic. And one of the things that Final Fantasy VII has the opportunity to do is make it catty, because both Aerith and Tifa have vested interests in Cloud, and yet they're incredibly supportive of each other the entire time. They make a great friendship with each other, and it's incredible to see a character written that well, that respects and is respected by the men around her, because it's not like all these guys are constantly ogling her tiggle bitties. They actually admire her for the person that she is. She's an inherently gentle person, which not all women are gentle, and we're not all expected to be gentle, but she is gentle. And they don't paint that as a bad quality. They don't paint that as a weakness. They actually create a character that's sort of motherly in her own right to everybody in the group around her, and everybody around her benefits from her kindness. In a world where Hollywood paints women to be the end-all, be-all. They're better than the men around them, and they don't need to be warm and gentle because they're top dogs and they want leadership and all that shit. Tifa is a character who is quietly yearning. She's gentle, she's motherly, she's kind, she's also an incredibly good fighter. She kicks ass, she's strong, she's brave, she's intelligent. She is a well-rounded character. I think so many people have developed these outwardly, admittedly petty perspectives when they see women at the forefront of anything, any piece of media, because Hollywood just tends to give you Mary Sue's. She's great at everything, she's perfect, blah, blah, blah. I don't want that. Don't give me perfect, give me complicated. Just write a person. Write a person with an internal monologue, with a struggle, with a goal, with something they want to achieve, something they want, something they don't want. Write somebody interesting. And people will fall in line because Tifa is beloved by men and women because she's a great character. And I wish Hollywood would look at a character like Tifa Lockhart and really understand what people want from women in the media today, because we're not asking for perfection or the end-all be-all or the girl boss. And I have said this line so many times because I honestly live by it, and it's one of the greatest things I've ever heard. When Peter Cullen, the voice of Optimus Prime, talks about voicing Optimus Prime, he says that his brother told him, be strong enough to be gentle. And that's one of the great things that I think that we could think about in writing any character, but especially Hollywood needs to hear when it comes to writing women, is that we don't have to exist to bite people's heads off, to be the strongest, to put men in their place. We don't have to attack the world like that. And in fact, real people that walk through life like that are kind of repugnant. I don't want to deal with somebody that walks out with a chip on their shoulder. There's a strength and there is honor in being gentle and being kind. It's not weakness. There's nothing weak about being a woman that is kind to the people around her. There's the difference between being a doormat and being a nice person. And I think Hollywood has really just blurred that line entirely and has just decided to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And if you're not a girl boss, you're not getting written. And that's a real mistake because as a woman, I think that we could contribute a lot if we were written better by people that understood good character writing and weren't just looking to check off a, look, we put a woman in it box. Also, we made her better than men at everything. Check that box too. Just give me a well-written, well-rounded person. You don't have to be afraid to make her vulnerable just because she's a woman. I promise you, we're still gonna buy the action figure. Because honestly, I'm buying her. I need her. And that's all from me. I've been SnarkyJay. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. For more SnarkyJay, be sure to check me out on Instagram. And if you'd like to support me, this channel, and my content creation, do check out and consider subscribing to my Patreon for exclusive photo shoot sets and cosplay content. I'll add links to all of those in the description below. And let me know your thoughts on Hollywood's girl boss problem in the comments below.